What you hold in your mind is far greater than what you see with your eyes. The outer world is nothing but the shadow cast by your inner arrangements. If you are dissatisfied with life, it is not the world that must change, it is your mind that must be rearranged. You see, the secret is this: the world is yourself pushed out. Whatever you assume within, no matter how hidden, will find expression without. Therefore, if you long for a new life, dare to assume it inwardly now. Rearrange the furniture of your mind. Place faith where fear has been, abundance where lack has sat, and confidence where doubt has dwelt. The world will obediently reflect this new order. Imagine vividly, feel deeply, persist courageously. When you clothe yourself in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are planting the seed of tomorrow's reality. Do not wait for evidence to appear before you. Evidence will come only after you have rearranged the invisible. So tonight, as you retire, close your eyes and step into the scene of your desire. Walk within it. Smell the air of it. Hear the voices that confirm it is done. Rest in the assumption that what you have felt is already fact. When the mind is reordered, the outer world cannot help but yield. You are the potter, and imagination is your hand. Mold your mind, and life itself will take the shape you have given it. Begin now. Rearrange your mind, and watch the universe rearrange itself for you. The outer world reflects the state of your inner mind. For every circumstance you meet is born from the arrangement of thoughts and feelings you secretly carry. Life does not move against you, it mirrors you faithfully, responding to the images you sustain within. If you harbor lack, you will encounter conditions of limitation. If you nurture abundance, doors of opportunity will open before you. The world is a stage where your assumptions play out, and every scene is crafted by the inner dialogue you repeat. To transform the outer, you must first reorder the inner with conscious intention. Change begins by rearranging thoughts and assumptions, because nothing in life alters until the inner blueprint is shifted. The reality you experience is not independent of you. It is drawn from the unseen structure of your beliefs, expectations, and inner conversations. Every assumption you hold is like a seed planted in the subconscious, and the outer world faithfully produces the harvest of that seed. If you wish to experience success, love, or abundance, you must first arrange your thoughts so that they align with the feeling of already possessing these states. To continue dwelling on doubt, fear, or lack is to water the wrong garden, ensuring the repetition of the same conditions. The secret lies in your willingness to deliberately choose new assumptions and persist in them until they feel natural. This does not require effort in the outer world, but discipline in the inner world, where imagination paints the scene of what will later appear as fact. Rearranging thoughts means replacing the story of limitation with one of possibility, and rearranging assumptions means daring to accept that what you desire is already yours, even before it is seen. From this new inner order, life reorganizes itself to match fear, lack, and doubt must be replaced with faith, abundance, and confidence, for these inner states determine the reality that unfolds before you. Fear contracts the mind, locking you into cycles of hesitation and limitation, while faith expands it, allowing you to move with boldness and certainty toward the unseen. Lack is never a condition of the outer world, but a condition of inner perception. When you dwell upon the idea that there is not enough, you invite experiences that confirm that belief. Yet, when you shift to the feeling of abundance, opportunities, resources, and connections appear as though summoned by an unseen hand. Doubt is the silent thief that robs you of your creations. For every time you question the reality of your desire, you uproot the seed you have planted. Confidence, however, is the soil in which your assumption grows strong, unshaken by appearances, until it blossoms into tangible fact. To live in faith is to trust the unseen reality more than the visible one, to know that imagination is the creative force shaping all experience. To live in abundance is to affirm that supply flows to you endlessly and effortlessly. To live in confidence is to embody your desire so fully that no contrary evidence can sway you. These replacements are not acts of wishful thinking, but deliberate choices of consciousness. When fear arises, you choose faith. When thoughts of lack whisper, you affirm abundance. When doubt attempts to weaken your conviction, you strengthen confidence by feeling the end result as already real. This inner substitution becomes the foundation of transformation, for the outer world cannot help but mirror the qualities of the inner state. By consciously replacing fear, lack, and doubt with faith, abundance, and confidence, you align yourself with the life you seek. Imagination is the creative force shaping reality because every structure, every invention, every circumstance that exists in the visible world was first conceived in the invisible realm of thought. Nothing appears without first being imagined, for imagination is the womb of creation. It is not a passive daydream, but the power that gives birth to form, the unseen architect constructing the blueprint of your life. When you imagine, you are impressing upon the subconscious the pattern it must express. And whether you do this consciously or unconsciously, the law never fails to operate. The quality of your imagination determines the quality of your life, for what you vividly hold within will inevitably manifest without. To understand this is to realize that imagination is not secondary to action but primary, for action is only the shadow of imagination. A man who pictures himself prosperous, loved, and successful inwardly will move through life differently than one who imagines failure, rejection, or struggle. The first attracts opportunities, the second obstacles, yet both are simply the outer reflections of the inner images sustained. Imagination sets the tone, and the world responds accordingly. When you deliberately use imagination, you step into the role of creator rather than victim. By assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you make real in consciousness what has not yet appeared to the senses, and persistence in this assumption causes reality to bend itself into alignment. This is not fanciful thinking, but the very principle by which all transformations occur. The man who imagines health while lying sick in bed sets in motion the forces that restore vitality. The woman who imagines love though alone begins to radiate the vibration that draws companionship. The worker who imagines promotion while in a humble position prepares the stage for advancement. Imagination requires no permission, no resources, no external condition to operate. It is always available, always obedient, always creative. To neglect it is to leave your life to chance, but to master it is to live consciously as the director of your own experience. Imagination shapes reality because it is reality in seed form, and when you persist in it, the seed must grow into visible fact. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled now. For the key to all manifestation lies not in waiting for circumstances to change, but in boldly stepping into the inner state of already having what you desire. Desire itself is a signpost pointing you toward the life you are meant to embody, but it remains only a dream until you clothe it in the feeling of reality. To assume is to accept within yourself that the wish is accomplished, to feel as though the unseen has already solidified into fact. This assumption, once accepted and persisted in, compels the world to take shape around it. The mind does not distinguish between what is imagined and what is experienced. It responds only to the feeling impressed upon it. If you feel lack, your subconscious will faithfully project conditions that mirror lack. If you feel abundance, your subconscious will create avenues for abundance to appear. The feeling is the secret, and assumption is the bridge that carries you from longing to fulfillment. You do not wait for evidence to permit you to feel the joy of your desire. You feel it now, and evidence arrives later to confirm what you have already accepted within. This is why Neville taught that you must live as though your wish were already a present reality. When you assume the state of being healthy, loved, prosperous, or free, you begin to think, speak, and act in harmony with that state. These natural shifts in behavior are not forced effort, but the effortless outpouring of the inner conviction you hold. Reality rearranges itself to match your self-concept, and what once seemed impossible is drawn to you with precision and order. To assume the feeling is not to strain or pretend, but to relax into the knowing that it is done. In imagination, step into the scene that implies your wish is fulfilled. See it, hear it, touch it, but above all, feel it. Let the satisfaction of accomplishment fill you, the relief of completion settle in you, and the joy of realization lift you. Persist in this inner state, especially when appearances contradict it, for the outer world is slow to catch up to the new order within. The unseen must first be stabilized before the seen can reflect it. Each night before sleep, enter the state akin to sleep, and replay your wish fulfilled as though it were unfolding now. Let it be so vivid and natural that you drift into slumber from the feeling of success. In this sacred interval, the subconscious accepts the impression most deeply, and life responds with uncanny accuracy. When you assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled now, you declare yourself to be the creator, not the spectator. You cease waiting for life to grant you what you seek and begin granting it to yourself in consciousness. From this inner assumption flows the transformation of circumstances, for what is true within must eventually be true, without persist in inner conviction, until it hardens into fact, for imagination is the seed, assumption is the soil, and persistence is the sunlight that brings your creation to life. The mind is constantly weaving reality from the threads of belief, and whatever you hold to with unwavering certainty must eventually appear in the world of sense. The challenge for most is not in imagining their desire, or even assuming it, but in persisting when outer appearances contradict the inner vision. Yet it is precisely in those moments that persistence becomes the golden key. For the world is only reflecting your past states while your new assumption is gathering strength. Conviction is the inner knowing that your desire is already accomplished, even when every outer fact suggests otherwise. It is to stand unmoved by the evidence of the senses, declaring silently that what you feel within is truer than what you see without. When you persist in this conviction, you are impressing the subconscious mind with the pattern of your fulfilled desire, and the subconscious, being faithful and impartial, must reproduce it in your life. Doubt may whisper, circumstances may appear stubborn, but persistence dissolves every obstacle, because persistence trains the mind to accept the new reality as natural. This persistence is not the restless striving of effort, but the calm repetition of assumption. Each time you return to the state of your wish fulfilled, you are watering the seed, reinforcing the impression, and strengthening the conviction until it becomes second nature. Just as a habit is formed by repeated thought and action, so the state of your desire becomes a habit of consciousness when you persist. Eventually, the feeling of fulfillment becomes so normal to you that the outer world has no choice but to align itself with your inner certainty. To persist is to remain faithful in imagination regardless of delay, to embody the vision with such consistency that no contradiction can shake it. You may find yourself tested, tempted to revert to old patterns of doubt or fear, but each return to conviction is a victory, each reaffirmation of the wish fulfilled a step closer to manifestation. The law of consciousness does not fail, but it demands persistence, for without it the seed of desire is uprooted before it can take root. Think of a sculptor who chips away at stone, stroke by stroke, until the form within is revealed. Persistence in conviction works the same way. For every assumption you repeat shapes the invisible substance of reality, gradually revealing the life you have chosen to imagine. The outer world bends under the weight of sustained inner belief, and what once seemed unchangeable yields to the persistence of conviction. This persistence must be carried into the quiet moments of the day, the stillness before sleep, and the waking hours when distractions arise. Each time you notice the mind drifting to doubt or fear, gently bring it back to the vision of fulfillment. Live as though the desire were already accomplished, not once but repeatedly, until the inner state feels more real than the outer condition. When this conviction hardens into fact, the manifestation appears effortlessly, not as a miracle, but as the natural outpicturing of the state you have sustained. Persist in inner conviction, for persistence is faith in action, and faith sustained long enough always creates the reality it assumes. Evidence follows imagination, never precedes it, for the unseen always gives birth to the seen, and consciousness forever leads creation. The world you touch, hear, and see is nothing more than the shadow of your inner arrangement, the crystallization of images once alive only in thought. To wait for evidence before you dare to imagine boldly is to place the cart before the horse, expecting the shadow to move the substance. It is imagination that moves first, and evidence appears afterward as its inevitable offspring. This is the eternal order of creation, and until you grasp it, you remain bound by appearances, doubting your own creative power. When you imagine you are planting a seed within the fertile soil of the subconscious mind, that seed, if left undisturbed by contradiction and doubt, will germinate and grow into form. The outer world cannot resist the inner decree, for the laws of consciousness are absolute and unchanging. Yet most falter, because they demand evidence before they allow themselves to believe. They wish to see proof before assuming the state of fulfillment, forgetting that proof itself is the child of assumption. To require evidence first is to deny the very law by which life operates, for imagination is the cause, and evidence is always the effect. Consider how every invention, every discovery, every work of art began. The bridge was imagined before it spanned the river. The poem was heard in the heart before it was written on paper. The cure was seen in the mind before it was confirmed in the body. No evidence existed beforehand, only the conviction of the one who dared to imagine and persist in that vision. Evidence always comes later, sometimes through subtle shifts, sometimes through dramatic transformations, but it always comes because it must. The unseen is the seedbed of the seen, and imagination is the only doorway through which evidence enters. This truth must be lived, not merely understood intellectually. To live by imagination is to refuse to be enslaved by appearances, to no longer bow before the testimony of the senses when they contradict your inner knowing. It is to walk in the assumption of your desire fulfilled, even when no trace of it is yet visible. It is to say within yourself, I have already received, and to rest in that feeling until the world confirms it. Evidence does not create the conviction, conviction creates the evidence. The outer event is only a mirror, faithfully reflecting the inner reality you have sustained. Many surrender their dreams because evidence does not arrive quickly, but impatience is only a sign that they have placed their trust in appearances instead of imagination. The seed requires time to grow, the pattern requires time to unfold, but the law never fails. Just as no farmer digs up his field in doubt each day to check whether the seed has sprouted, so you must not uproot your vision with disbelief. To persist in imagination without evidence is to exercise the highest faith, and that faith is the very force that compels evidence to come. Every time you choose to imagine the end and dwell in the feeling of its fulfillment, you are creating the conditions that will later appear as fact. It does not matter if the present contradicts it, for the present is only the residue of past assumptions. What matters is the state you now occupy, for that state will soon harden into your next reality. Evidence is always trailing behind imagination, never ahead of it. When you hold to this law, you free yourself from the tyranny of appearances and become the master of your destiny. Therefore, live inwardly in the wish fulfilled, walk with the assurance that what you have accepted in imagination is already real, and trust that evidence must follow. Do not ask when or how, for these belong to the outer world, not to the inner. Your task is only to imagine, assume, and persist, knowing that imagination is the true cause of all, and evidence, without fail, is its effect. Nighttime imagination is the gateway to manifestation, because in those sacred moments between wakefulness and sleep the conscious mind relaxes, and the subconscious becomes most receptive to suggestion. The state akin to sleep is the doorway through which impressions pass directly into the creative depths of your being, and what you impress there will soon express itself in your waking life. All day long you may wrestle with conflicting thoughts, doubts, and distractions, but at night, when the body grows still and the mind drifts into drowsiness, you hold in your hand the golden key to reshape destiny. This is why Neville urged again and again to use the interval before sleep deliberately, for what you carry into slumber you will carry into creation. Imagination at night is not mere daydreaming, but the conscious arrangement of inner scenes that imply the fulfillment of your desire. It is taking the invisible wish and clothing it with sensory vividness, until it feels real, until the satisfaction of accomplishment fills your heart so completely that you drift into sleep from that state. The subconscious, being without judgment or resistance, accepts this feeling as fact, And in the silence of sleep, it begins to weave circumstances, events, and conditions that bring the imagined into the visible. Nighttime is the womb of tomorrow's reality, and what you conceive there is what you will one day meet. Consider how the mind naturally replays the day as you lie in bed. The conversations, the worries, the unfinished business, these images float before you, and unless you intervene, they are carried into sleep and impressed upon the subconscious. Thus the same patterns repeat, the same conditions persist, and life appears unchanged. But if instead you choose deliberately to revise the day, or to imagine the scene of your fulfilled desire, you interrupt the cycle and plant new seeds. If an argument troubled you, imagine it resolved with harmony. If lack haunted you, imagine abundance flowing to you. If fear rose within, imagine yourself safe, confident, and victorious. In this way, the nighttime becomes the laboratory of transformation, and the dreams of the soul become the facts of the waking world. The power of nighttime imagination lies not only in its receptivity, but in its continuity. Sleep carries your last waking mood deep into the subconscious, where it is nurtured and multiplied. If you fall asleep feeling defeated, you reinforce defeat, but if you fall asleep feeling victorious, you summon victory. The law is impartial. The subconscious does not question what is true or false. It only accepts what is vividly felt. This is why it is not enough to casually think about your desire. You must feel it with intensity, as though it were already your reality. The emotion is the magnet, the feeling is the seal, and once impressed at night, it begins its journey toward expression. Nighttime imagination is also the time to practice the art of living from the end. To live from the end is to step into the scene that implies your wish is fulfilled, and to experience it now in consciousness. Do not imagine yourself striving for the goal, but already in possession of it. If you desire health, feel the vitality of a body restored. If you long for love, feel the warmth of companionship beside you. If you seek success, hear the congratulatory voices of friends and colleagues. Let these inner scenes unfold with clarity until you can rest in them naturally, without strain, as though they were memories rather than wishes. Then surrender to sleep with that feeling alive within you, knowing it is done. Through persistence in this nightly practice, the mind is gradually reconditioned, and your outer life reflects the new order within. Circumstances begin to shift, opportunities arise, people play their part, and the once invisible assumption takes form. To the world it may appear as coincidence or luck, but to you it is the inevitable outworking of the seed you planted in imagination. Night after night you rewrite your destiny, and day after day you reap the harvest of your inner work. This gateway of nighttime imagination requires no effort, no resources, no outward struggle. It only asks for awareness and discipline, to turn your final thoughts each night toward what you desire rather than what you fear. It is the quiet practice of faith, the silent shaping of tomorrow. To neglect it is to hand over your creative power to random impressions and the residue of the day. But to master it is to live consciously as the author of your experience. The world is always yourself pushed out, and the self you impress upon the subconscious at night is the self you will meet in the morning. Therefore, use the moments before sleep wisely, for they are the richest soil of creation. See clearly, feel deeply, persist faithfully, and let the imagined scene carry you into slumber. For what you fall asleep in, you will awaken to, and nighttime imagination will prove itself to be the surest gateway to manifestation. You are the potter, life is the clay, for everything you encounter in the outer world is malleable substance waiting for the form you impress upon it. Just as a potter looks at a shapeless lump of clay and sees the possibility of a vessel, so must you look at the unformed experiences of life and see in them the potential of your imagination. The clay does not resist the hand that molds it, it simply yields to the pressure applied. Likewise, life itself does not resist the inner arrangements of your mind, it reflects them with absolute fidelity. Whatever shape you hold in consciousness long enough is the shape that reality must assume. To understand this is to realize that no circumstance is permanent and no condition is fixed. The clay of life remains pliable, ever ready to be reformed by a new concept of self. If you do not like the vessel you now behold, if the experiences you meet are not to your liking, then the answer is not to fight the clay, but to change the design in your imagination. The potter does not argue with the clay, he simply reshapes it according to his vision. So too must you cease arguing with circumstances and begin imagining anew. Every thought, every assumption, every feeling you persist in is like the potter's hand pressing into the clay. Fear shapes one kind of vessel, faith shapes another. Doubt molds one life, confidence molds another. The clay is indifferent to what form it takes, but you, the potter, decide the form by the pattern you hold within. The outer world has no choice but to mirror the inner design, and when you persist in that design, the clay hardens into the vessel of your assumption. The beauty of this truth lies in the fact that no shape is final. The potter may return to the wheel, soften the clay, and begin again. Likewise, you are never bound to the conditions you once imagined, for the clay of life can be remolded the moment you assume a new state. What has been created can be uncreated, and what has not yet been seen can be brought forth. The only requirement is that you know yourself to be the potter and dare to take up the tools of imagination and faith. When you imagine vividly and feel deeply, you are pressing the unseen hands of your mind upon the clay of reality. You may not see the vessel instantly, but the impression has already been made, and in time it must appear. To doubt this is to abandon the wheel halfway, leaving the vessel unfinished. But to persist in conviction is to allow the form to solidify. Life is endlessly yielding, and it bends itself to the steady pressure of your inner belief. The potter works with intention. He does not place his hands randomly, hoping the clay will somehow form itself into beauty. He directs every movement with purpose, vision, and patience. In the same way, you must work with intention and imagination. Do not allow random fears or careless assumptions to press into the clay, for they will form vessels you do not desire. Instead, shape your inner world with clarity, focus, and persistence, knowing that every impression counts. Every thought repeated, every feeling accepted, every assumption persisted, it becomes a stroke upon the clay of life. The potter also trusts the process. He does not despair when the vessel is still soft and unshaped, for he knows that with steady pressure and time, it will hold the form he envisions. You too must trust the law of consciousness, for it never fails. Evidence may not appear immediately, but the clay is already yielding beneath your hands. Each night as you imagine, each day as you persist in the state of your wish fulfilled, the vessel is forming. The moment will come when the clay hardens into fact, and what was once unseen in imagination becomes visible in the world. To live as the potter is to accept full responsibility for the shapes that surround you. The vessels of your life are not accidents, nor are they imposed by others. They are the results of impressions once made upon the clay of reality. If you find a vessel misshapen or unworthy, do not despair, for the clay is endless and pliable, waiting for your new design. Begin again in imagination, and the wheel will turn once more, reshaping life according to your vision. You are not powerless before the clay, you are its master. Life may present itself as rigid, unchangeable, or resistant, but this is only the illusion of hardened vessels created by past assumptions. The moment you return to the wheel and apply new pressure through imagination, the process of reshaping begins. The hardened forms of yesterday dissolve under the heat of faith, and the clay softens once again in the hands of the potter. The art of life is the art of molding the clay with persistence, patience, and precision. It requires the courage to imagine boldly, the discipline to persist faithfully, and the wisdom to know that every outer form is but the echo of an inner design. When you see yourself as the potter, you cease blaming the clay and begin shaping it with purpose. You realize that all power is within, and the outer world is only the vessel of your own making. You are the potter. Life is the clay. Every assumption is your hand upon it. Every feeling is the pressure that shapes it. Every conviction is the design that hardens into form. The clay waits upon you silently, pliable and obedient, ready to become whatever you dare to imagine. If you wish for beauty, mold it. If you desire abundance, shape it. If you long for love, impress it. The clay has no will of its own. It becomes only what the potter commands. Rearranging your mind rearranges your world, because the outer world is nothing more than a projection of the inner state you consistently occupy. What you think, feel, and assume within becomes the pattern that life must express without. And until you change the arrangement of your inner world, you cannot expect your outer world to shift. Most people try to alter circumstances by direct effort, fighting with appearances, struggling with conditions, or attempting to force change through sheer willpower. Yet the true transformation is always internal. The cause of all you see lies within the arrangement of your thoughts and assumptions. And the moment you reorder them, the mirror of life must reflect the new pattern. The mind is like a room filled with furniture, some arranged in ways that allow flow and beauty, others cluttered and disorderly. If your inner room is filled with doubt, fear, lack, and limitation, then no matter how much you strive outwardly, you will continue to trip over the same conditions. But when you begin to rearrange the furniture of the mind, moving out the pieces that no longer serve you, and placing in their stead faith, confidence, abundance, and love, the entire feel of the room changes. And so too does the atmosphere of your life. Outer experiences simply walk into the room you have furnished within, and they behave according to the order you have set. Every assumption you hold is a piece of furniture in that inner room. If you assume the world is hostile, you will encounter hostility. If you assume life is generous, you will find generosity meeting you on every side. The world does not contradict your assumptions, it conforms to them. The arrangement of your mind determines the shape of your experience, for consciousness is the one reality, and life is its expression. Rearranging the mind means deliberately choosing the assumptions you will accept as true, and persisting in them until they feel natural. To rearrange your mind, you must first notice the arrangement that already exists. Much of what people experience is the result of unconscious assumptions carried from childhood, culture, or past experiences. These unexamined beliefs continue to occupy the room, shaping reality without question. The work begins when you shine the light of awareness upon these patterns and ask whether they serve the life you desire. If they do not, they must be replaced with new assumptions, just as worn and broken furniture must be removed and new pieces brought in. This replacement is not a one-time event but an ongoing process, for the mind must be continually refreshed with the images and feelings of the reality you wish to create. Rearranging your mind also requires persistence, for the outer world often lags behind the new order within. Just as it takes time for a seed to grow into a tree, so it takes time for a new arrangement of assumptions to harden into fact. During this period, appearances may still reflect the old arrangement, tempting you to revert to familiar doubts and fears. But if you persist in the new inner order, the outer must eventually yield, for life cannot resist the pattern impressed upon it. The mirror may take time to clear, but it always reflects the image placed before it. The practical way to rearrange your mind is through imagination. Imagination is the power by which you see and feel what you desire as already accomplished. It is the tool of the potter shaping the clay, the painter bringing color to canvas, the architect drawing blueprints for the house of life. When you enter imagination and assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you are rearranging your mind in harmony with your desire. You are placing new furniture in the room, setting it in order, and preparing the stage for the play of life. Each time you return to this scene in imagination, you strengthen the new arrangement until it becomes natural, and once it feels natural, it must express itself in the outer world. Nighttime is especially powerful for this work, for as you drift into sleep, the mind is most impressionable. The final thoughts and feelings you carry into slumber are impressed deeply upon the subconscious, and the subconscious faithfully reproduces them in experience. To fall asleep imagining your wish fulfilled is to rearrange your mind at the deepest level, ensuring that the new order is established. Over time, this nightly practice dissolves the old arrangement and replaces it with one aligned to your desire, and the world reshapes itself accordingly. Rearranging your mind also involves revising the past. Many carry memories of failure, rejection, or pain that continue to influence their present. These memories are like old furniture taking up space in the room, shaping the atmosphere without permission. Through imagination, you can revise these memories, re-experiencing them in a way that implies a different outcome. By doing so, you rearrange the meaning of the past in your mind, and this new arrangement frees the present from the chains of what once was. Revision is a powerful way to clear space in the inner room, making way for new experiences to enter. The beauty of rearranging your mind is that no condition is beyond transformation. It does not matter how solid the outer facts appear, for they are only the hardened shadows of past arrangements. Just as the potter can soften clay and mold it anew, so too can you soften the rigidity of circumstances by refusing to accept them as final. The moment you assume a new inner state and persist in it, the clay begins to yield, and life gradually conforms to the new design. What once seemed impossible bends beneath the pressure of sustained imagination, and the world reshapes itself to match the order within. When you truly grasp that rearranging your mind rearranges your world, you cease blaming others, fearing circumstances, or waiting for luck. You recognize that you are the architect, the painter, the potter, and that life is your canvas, your clay, your stage. You take full responsibility for the state you occupy, and with that responsibility comes freedom. Freedom to imagine boldly, to assume deliberately, to persist faithfully, and to witness the miracle of transformation. Rearranging your mind is the greatest act of creation you can undertake, for it is the origin of all outer change. Every dream realized, every desire fulfilled, every success achieved begins first as an inner reordering of thought and feeling. When the mind is rearranged, the world cannot help but follow, for the world is only the mirror of the self. If you long for a new life, do not struggle with appearances, but step within and rearrange the furniture of your mind until it reflects the world you wish to see. For once the inner room is set in order, the outer will echo it with perfect fidelity.